Waiting for students. Nobody. Okay, the first has come now. Hello, Ronnie. Palle. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Uh, shall we wait for a couple of minutes? Good afternoon, Gnaneshwari.
Good afternoon, sir.
Why are you so afraid? I'm not a man eater or a woman eater or any of those things. You don't have to be so afraid of me. Good afternoon, Manisha.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay. Okay, let's get going. I think we'll have a shortish class today because I'm just recovering from a rotary vertigo attack, which basically means that, you feel like the room is going round and round, and it's quite a horrible feeling. Can't keep the eyes open, and it just makes nausea in the stomach. I've just recovered from that. So despite of my considerable uh, bulk, I actually am feeling weak right now. So and in the middle there's no power. So running this on my mobile hotspot. Okay. Yesterday I was talking to you about how a number of distortions, uh, how a number of distortions have crept into what was Sanatana Dharma of the Vedic period, and that particular Sanatana Dharma did not have uh, what was added on later by the Manusmriti. I told you that. And in fact, the whole notion of Dvija, if you remember that, I had told you that Dvija is
Yes, sir.
something that came with the Manusmriti. Otherwise, there was nothing like that. And there was no bar even on Shudras uh, learning the Vedas and the Upanishads. So the texts which are the Vedas and the Upanishads, though the Upanishads are a modification later on, though they are a modification, you will find that uh, those modifications did not contribute to inequality. Just give me a second, please. This is a slightly important telephone call. Hello. Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. Um, so some of the these things came in through the Manusmriti, and some of them through the fact that the Brahmins created a system of jatis out of a system which was otherwise called was based in the Varna. The Varna system is not something that is defined by parentage, and it is defined by jatis. I mean, what is defined by parentage is called the jati system. So the caste system, as it is called, is essentially a jati system. Jati not as a race, but as a particular group of closed group of people. Okay, Jati not as race, not the English translation is not race, just a closed group of people. In fact, caste was borrowed from Portuguese by the British in order to try and understand the Jati system, because caste is not an English word, it's a Portuguese word. And what it basically denotes is a closed group of people, and the membership of this group is not available to all. Okay, so there can be different kinds of caste groupings. What we have in India is the Jati system, which is being called a caste by the British, because otherwise it would have become race. They would have otherwise had to translate it as race. If you say race, then we're different races. No, we're not different races. In fact, today people say that anthropologists will basically argue that there is no such thing as different races. Okay, at one time people said the Europeans or Caucasians, and then people from Polynesia, uh, and Southeast Asia, and the various American, uh, South and North American tribes. They were supposed to be Mongoloid, and the African people were called Negroid. Okay, today nobody accepts this classification, uh, and people will say that there is just one human race. I would also, since I'm talking about this, I would also draw your attention to yet another word that gets used in our everyday parlance. And sometimes this word also creeps in to social science vocabulary. And this particular word is ethnic, ETHNIC. Okay, now ethnic differences have traditionally been seen as differences which are um, based in, again, some kind of racial difference. Sometimes people said it's a cultural difference. Whatever it is that they have said, uh, the important thing is that ethnicity, even though a number of social scientists also still continue to use it, especially in the United States of America, but in Europe and in India, both anthropologists and sociologists have stopped using the term ethnic. Okay, if you take one famous sociologist from the University of Delhi, Andre Bataille, he's of French descent, Andre, Andre, B-A-T, T-E-I-L-L-E, Andre Bataille. Andre Bataille is a sociologist, and he has also done a little bit of anthropology. He is somebody who claims that there are no different ethnicities in the world anymore. Even if they were there at some time, maybe it would have been millions of years ago. But what we have now is a world which has no ethnic differences. However, he says that there is probably one or two exceptions to this. He cites the Aborigines, Aborigines, Aborigines. Now they're called Aborigines, but it's actually it's not a designation as in a name of this thing. Aborigines are sons of the soil, those who were born and lived in one area only. He says the Australian Aborigines, and to a certain extent, maybe, he says the Maoris, Maoris, Maoris of New Zealand may constitute a separate kind of an ethnicity, but otherwise, he says there are no ethnic differences anymore. There is a tribe, there are a few tribes apparently in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, not so much Nicobar, Andamans. Those people are cut off from the world. Nobody is allowed to visit them. Those may be ethnically different from us. That is another thing that you must understand. Okay. Anyway, so to come back to the idea that there are, please do not use the terms ethnic and all, race, when we are talking about the caste system. It is one race. It is just the trickery of the Brahmins that, condemned people to certain statuses like that of untouchables and all that. But the original system that existed in India was an extremely open system. It was open for everybody, even like we talk about rishis. Okay, I was talking to you about how individual mobility in the Varna was possible. Uh, I talked to you about Haritasa, who was a Kshatriya and became a Brahmin, as did Vishwamitra, who was also a Kshatriya and became a Brahmin. So, apart from that, I also told you that women also were at one point considered to be eligible for the thread ceremony, the Upanayana. They were also eligible for that. And just as you have this rishis, Rishi, Rishi, we call Maharishi, Raja Rishi, Brahma Rishi, just as we have these categories in applicable to males, you also have a category that is applicable to women. Women who became rishis were called rishikas, Rishikas, rishikas. So they were also, they held the same status that the men held. Rishikas were not considered inferior to the rishis, and learning was not denied to women. And we have several instances of where women uh, were considered to be gurus. Okay, and it was these rishikas mainly who became guru. The word guru is not applicable only to men, and there is no uh, equivalent of that uh, for women, a different word that is equivalent of that for women. A guru is a teacher and a learned person. So, uh, guru was applicable even to women. So there were gurukulams or gurukulas, if you want, or gurukuls. All these were there, and they were run by women as well. So you had women sages also. So therefore, that system is something which is very, very different from what we see in the later periods of Indian history. Uh, you find that this is the most open culture that existed, and unlike other great civilizations like the Mesopotamian civilization, uh, the Egyptian civilization, uh, the Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, they have vanished without a trace. Even some of the Central American civilizations, like the Mayas, or sometimes called the Maya, and the Maya is plural and singular. Some people say Mayas, some people say Mayans, Mayans. Uh, the most acceptable of all these is Mayans. The Mayans have vanished, as did the Zoque, Zoque. The Zoque were also a Central American civilization, old civilization, uh, the traces of which are not left anywhere. Whereas Sanatana Dharma continues to exist in India despite the perversions that have crept into it. Definitely, a lot of perversions crept into it, but Sanatana Dharma in itself did not die out. It is the longest persisting civilization. And if you take Varanasi as the seat of Sanatana Dharma, that is what a lot of people say it is. Varanasi is one of the most important places geographically when it comes to understanding the practice of Sanatana Dharma. Varanasi is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. It is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, and therefore you must understand that this has persisted. Some of the aspects, though they have got perverted, some of them have been twisted by the Brahmins, and to a certain extent later on by the other dominant groups as well. But otherwise, the civilization has basically persisted for over so many millions of years. Okay, the recent find of the coast of Gujarat under the sea basically is a city which carbon dating has been done, radiocarbon dating as it is called. The radiocarbon dating shows that this particular city, which is now under the sea, was probably anywhere between 30 to 38 million years old. So we are talking about something which is extremely ancient, and we are talking about a situation where we are uh, looking at the persistence of this particular civilization. Now, in this civilization, in the earliest parts, if you take the Indus Valley civilization, the Indus Valley civilization presents us with a little bit of a problem. The little bit of a problem is that the Indus Valley civilization predates, uh, it basically predates the Aryan civilization. Okay, and the Indus Valley civilization is, at least in its physical appearance, what people found in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, uh, what people have found is that these were urban civilizations. They had underground drainage, which is amazing for the time that it was. So all these perhaps should simply be called the Indus Valley civilizations. And I don't want to get into the controversy about the Aryans. There are some historians who say that Aryans came in small bands from Central Asia and went right across to the Southeast Asian countries. So you'll find the Aryans having gone to uh, places like uh, Cambodia, uh, then Vietnam. You'll find them in Malaysia, and you will find them in Indonesia and in Japan. In Japan, there is a word, a religion called Shinto, and apparently Shinto is the corruption of Hindu, and their practices are properly Hindu practices or Sanatana Dharma practices. So it went right up to Japan, this thing. And Cambodia is where you have Angkor Wat, one of the biggest temples of Vishnu in the world, and Mount Meru, which is supposed to be the place where Vishnu lives. That is in Cambodia, not anywhere in India. Okay, and while we are talking about this, Shiva is aboard Kailash. Mount Kailash is in what is now Chinese occupied Tibet. It is called Kailash Mansarovar because you have a lake, which is the Mansarovar, and you have the Kailash mountain there. That's supposed to be where Lord Shiva lived. And then if you see the folklore of Thailand, they have places like Ayodhya named in Thailand. They write it as Ayutthaya, Ayutthaya. That is supposed to be Ayodhya. So they have Ram temples in Thailand. So it's not just Buddhism that went from India. This also went to these different places in the Southeast Asian parts. Now, the controversy, let's not get into it, whether if Romila Thapar says that the Aryans came from Central Asia, uh, then there is R.C. Majumdar, who basically says they originated here uh, on the banks of what was once the river Saraswati and the Ganga River. And he says they went from India outwards. They went towards Khurasan, which is the buffer zone between Iran and Afghanistan. Says from there they went to Central Asia and all that. So these are, whatever it is, the home of the Aryan civilization is India. Whether they are indigenous people or whether they are not indigenous people is unnecessary to consider right now. What is important to consider is that the home of Aryan civilization is India. So if you had the Indus Valley civilization, which basically was the Mohenjo-daro Harappa kind of thing, which was an urban civilization, you'll find that the Aryan civilization is a predominantly rural civilization, and it was something that was more uh, in conjunction with nature. Okay, the Aryans basically worshipped nature. So anything natural was divine, it was cosmic. Some people call this pantheism. Pantheism is where you see the universe itself as you see the universe itself as a life system, divine system. And then some people say this is polytheism. Hindus have over 3 crore gods. Okay, but you see that because either due to pantheism or polytheism, Hindus do not say that there is only one God, which is what other religions say. So Hinduism is not even a religion, it's just a philosophy, a way of life. And in this way of life, people even go to the urs of Sufi saints like uh, in Ajmer, like Khwaja uh, Chishti, okay, who was called Banda Nawaz. Even today, more Hindus go to that urs annually than Muslims do. Okay, so Hindus are, they don't mind accepting divinity in anything, anywhere, because they saw the world itself as being divine. So, if you look at the kind of civilization that was unleashed by the Aryans, it was something that was rural, and in by being rural, you will see that the temples that they have constructed are not grand temples like the ones you find in southern India. Okay, you go to Varanasi, you go to um, Badrinath, you go to Kedarnath, you see any of these constructions, they are very small temples. They're extremely small temples. And Vaishno Devi temple is a small temple. So the Aryans basically lived in nature. They respected nature. They did not denude nature. And that is the setting in which we have this whole idea of Janapadas. Okay, what I have told you so far is basically the settings for the earliest Janapadas. The Janapadas were not kings who ruled people, it was just a chieftain. Okay, and the chieftain's residence was in no way grander than anybody else's uh, residence. Okay, he didn't wear a crown, by the way. He just did not wear a crown and go around. It was like a village sarpanch, one of the many people. That was how the Janapada was. That's why it's called a republic. Okay, not a republic in the modern sense of the term, but in the old sense of the term, where there was no power structure, organized power structure was not there. Governance was an activity that was carried on under the leadership of somebody who was chosen as the leader on the basis of his wisdom or whatever, and he would choose his team. So that is how the Janapadas came into being, and that is the form of republicanism that we see. So probably one can say something like the ancient Janapadas in India were the earliest known republics. Okay, the earliest known republics, and these Janapadas survived without conflict. Now, Altaker uses the spelling Janapadas, Janapadas, but B.A. Salator, he calls it Janapada. Now, if you are familiar with Telugu films of many years ago, if you're familiar with NTR's films, these films were called Janapadas. Okay, if it was not a mythological film were those that depicted Ramayana, Mahabharata, those kind of things. But apart from that, there was the genre of films made by many directors, the most famous of whom was this man called Vithalacharya. Vithalacharya made some fantastic Janapada films. The only aberration in that was that they showed the head as living in a palace, which was not the case. They didn't, there were no palaces in the Janapadas. okay, or the Janapadas. I leave it to you whether you want to call it Janapada or Janapada. So there was absolutely nothing. There was absolutely nothing to say that the ruler lived in a very big palatial building. But the rest of the film, especially Vittalacharya's films, these were films that showed the Janapada as it really was. As it really was, with a few embellishment, of course, because mainstream cinema is entertainment, so they can't do it like a documentary. So he would have added a few elements here and there, which were not really there in the Janapadas or the Janapadas. So apart from that, what we do find is that the whole idea of a Janapada as a republic is probably the oldest republic in the world. Okay, now when we talk about Janapada, people also talk about Ganapadas. Okay, and Ganapadas, some people say, are exactly the same thing as Janapadas. Some people says Ganapada is different. I don't have the time to start that now. We come to less than a minute. So I'll close the class here today. I'll look at some of the features of the Janapada tomorrow, one or two important features. And after that, we'll go to Ganapada and try to understand whether it is different at all or is it not different. Okay, that is something that we need to understand, which we shall do in tomorrow's class. Thank you, ladies, for attending.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So I hope to see you tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye,
Bye
sir.
bye. Bye.
Bye, sir.
Yeah, bye.